Hi, I'm Ahoora, and today I feel very honoured and excited to be able to interview a very inspiring person. So Jen Sims, who is one of the main pillars of one of the most successful comprehensive schools in England, Saffron Walden County High School. So Jen, I would like to start my interview with a quote that I collected. So I collected some quotes from your colleagues and your students and parents as well. So I'm going to start with that, if I may. So they described you as one of the warmest, kindest, yet strongest, with the unique quality of digging deep to find the good in everyone. Miss Sims is the guardian angel of the school and will always be remembered that way to our family. So my question is, how do you become a guardian angel?
Oh my goodness. I feel very honoured to have people say those things about me. I don't know whether I deserve them, really. I don't know whether some colleagues would describe me as an angel. I think the idea of digging deep was an interesting idea, because I think I do that. I try and understand people, primarily. I try and understand situations. I feel my way through things. I do believe that inherently people are good, children are good, and that everyone deserves a chance, and some children come to school with all sorts of disadvantages, and it's my job, or it has been my job, to ensure that everyone has an equal opportunity. I think that's one of the main reasons I became a teacher, was to ensure that all children got an equal opportunity and an equal chance at life, because our starting points aren't always the same.
Yeah.
As for an angel, maybe that's because I teach RE, I don't know, but I do like to know what's going on in school, so I suppose in that way it's a little bit like an angel, a sort of angel who knows everything. And I suppose I try and protect and care for people, so yeah, I wouldn't have described myself as an angel though.
I would. So going back a bit and thinking of the guardian angel, what career path did you take? So what actually got you into teaching?
Okay, well, my dad was a teacher, and so I was around schools all the time. He taught in a school for children with disabilities, and it was a residential school. But I started off doing law and had ideas of becoming a barrister. But I found it so boring that I left after a year, and then changed to theology, and I actually resisted the urge to become a teacher because I thought it was going to be boring. It was following in my dad's footsteps, and I went off to India and then had experience there of working in a school, and it was that really, and seeing the transformative power of education that made me decide to do my teacher qualification. But it wasn't actually until I started teaching that I realised that this was going to be my vocation, although that's not a well-used word anymore, but I just found that I loved it, and so I've stayed in education for 35 years now.
Yeah, good for us.
Yeah, well, good for me.
Yeah, good. So you mentioned your father, but could you describe a teacher that you had during your school time that you were inspired by? So could you like close your eyes for 5 seconds and think of someone that was the teacher that will always stick?
Yes, I mean, I had some pretty appalling teachers as well, actually, and they probably were more frequent in my life. But yes, I had a biology teacher called Mrs. Walden who was Jewish, and I remember she used to talk about her faith and her family, and she became a real person to me, not just a teacher. And I think it was that made me see that teachers were quite human, and that they could bring a lot of themselves and a lot of their own interests into their subject. I remember once she brought all her washing up from the night before to look at, I don't know, it must have been some experiment we were doing with fairy liquid. And I remember thinking, gosh, I don't know whether I'd bring all my dirty plates from the night before into school, but I don't know, she just inspired me. She was also a very, very good teacher, had the highest of standards, and yeah, she was an inspiration.
You mentioned travelling to India.
Yeah.
So, and I know you're a bit of a, you've travelled well. How about nature? So did nature influence you in a particular scene that you could learn from the nature in terms of what you want to do, in terms of what you want to teach? So was there, can you think of a particular moment, or?
I think certainly, I mean, I've travelled, as you say, a lot, but only to certain countries. I seem to have travelled to the same countries many times. So I was on my first trip to Israel, and at that time you could actually walk up Masada or Masada in Israel and stay there overnight and watch the sun rise over the River Jordan and the Dead Sea. And I remember doing that and just being at one in this very exposed hilltop fort, and then watch the beautiful sort of sunrise in the middle of summer over the water was very inspiring and very sort of moving and awe-inspiring, really. And when I was in India, I lived for a time up in the Himalayas, in the Himalayan foothills, and that also, you know, just being at one with nature and just reflecting that. Oops, should I take that?
Yeah, pause it. Jen, being who she is in the school, the phone keeps ringing, and we have to interrupt the interviews. So we're going to continue. So I'm going to ask that question again.
Okay.
So you were telling me about an experience in India, by the Himalaya, by the village. So could you just?
Yeah. So in the village, in the Himalayan foothills, it's a tribal village, and at that time it had no electricity and no water, and it was really hard, sort of not only living there but also working there and teaching in the school. And I used those experiences when I first started teaching, and we had links with the school, and children would write letters and receive letters from the village children. We also raised a lot of money, and actually I continued that when I came to County High, and we raised quite a lot, thousands of pounds to send to help them to rebuild the school. So you know, it was really good to be able to link my experiences in India with teaching now. And yeah, I mean, I hope to go back actually to the village and teach.
Can I come along?
You can, yeah, you'd be very welcome, I'm sure. Yeah, they'd love you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So now, I know you've taught many students, and it's a very difficult question to pick only one, but I would like you to just have a moment and think of a particular student that you worked with and you taught that changed the way you think, changed the way it was kind of a life lesson to you from a student. If you have it, I would appreciate it.
I mean, I think that's why I love teaching, because it's not just about you teaching children. I mean, I see myself more as a facilitator. I open up opportunities for children, and I've learned lots of things from children. But the children I've learnt most from have been those who've experienced the most difficult things in their life, because they challenge me to think in a different way, and to see that children's behaviour isn't fixed, that it can move and that it can be altered, it can be supported. So some of the most damaged and challenging children are the ones that have taught me the most, and have made me really go back to my reading and my looking at theories and looking at ideas and looking at research, in order to really to help them. And so I think they have probably taught me the most. So it's the most challenging, the most difficult, the most disaffected children who have taught me the most, and I hope that I've been able to connect with them in a way that's helped them and supported them and enabled them to be the very best that they can be. So yeah, I mean, I think I've never stopped learning, and I think even now I'm learning and I'm facing new situations that I haven't dealt with before. And so and that's, I think, what's been so rewarding about being in a school. You know, it's not just a place of learning for children, but also for adults too.
Definitely, I agree. Yeah, thank you for that. I want to try and speak a bit broader about the educational system rather than. So I came to this term myself a couple of weeks ago. It's known as future-proof. Do you feel it's a term that we can teach to our children, to our students? So can we make our students future-proof?
I think we can, and I think we've always tried to do that, certainly at County High. I mean, it's about teaching resilience, it's about teaching those skills that you need to make connections with people. It's about adaptability, isn't it? So, you know, the actual sort of academic content of a subject is obviously important. It's important for passing exams, but what's really important is to teach children about metacognition, about how they learn and how they process, and the value of certain types of learning over others, and what sort of inner skills that they need to, you know, future-proof them from a changing world. I mean, you know, the world is so very different now to how it was in February, just this year, you know, due to the lockdown and COVID, and it's changed in ways that we would never have anticipated.
Definitely.
And I think that those changes, you know, for all sorts of different reasons, you know, artificial intelligence and all sorts of things, are going to mean that our children have to dig deep and have to use the sort of resilience that they've developed, the adaptability, you know, the teamwork, all of those things. So I think we can. I think we can future-proof children, but we need to do more, really, and we need to be explicit about that, I think, and tell children why it is they're learning what they're learning.
It's interesting you've mentioned digging deep again, because that's how you were described at the beginning.
Yeah, it is true.
It's definitely something you encourage, I guess.
I suppose I do.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Interesting. Okay. Do you believe we are biased in what we teach?
As a country or as individuals?
Yeah, as a country.
I think we are. Yeah, I think we are. We have, particularly in England, we have a very British way of looking at things, and we tend to ignore the bigger picture sometimes. I think in this school we do try very hard to challenge that sort of British-centric way of looking at things.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Can you be biased but also be successful at being biased? Or
I think we should always challenge our personal bias and our unconscious bias all of the time. I mean, I think you know, you can end up very much in a rut if you don't look outside, if you don't look at things from different perspectives. And I think the Black Lives Matter, for example, is a very interesting case in point. You know, looking at this idea of you know, widening the history curriculum and the curriculum generally to encourage children to see different perspectives on history and literature and religion. You know, for example, we never teach about African religions. Why not? You know, so yeah.
Okay. The next question is: so with the currency of how children learn now, with the power of YouTube, the power of artificial intelligence you mentioned, so the learning is just not in schools. It's everywhere. It's on their hands with their mobile phones. So do you feel we need to have some lesson or sessions on learning?
On learning itself?
Yeah, on learning. So teaching.
How to learn?
Yeah, teaching on learning. So the strategies they might have picked up, can we teach how that can be unlearned?
Unlearned?
Unlearned, yeah.
Why would they want to unlearn it?
Because that, if it's something they learned, it's not correct.
So challenging, you know, incorrect learning.
Yes.
I think we do that. I I think one of the ways of teaching children to be future-proofing themselves is to think about where they find out their information from, where they get that information from, and to look critically at sources and to be good researchers, and not just to take everything at face value on Facebook or YouTube. And we do promote sort of, you know, good online learning through our PSHE curriculum. But I think it's every teacher's job to challenge that, and to, particularly when you're setting research homeworks, to look at where children are going for their information, and to look at, you know, what makes good evidence and what makes poor evidence. I think this is one of the real worries actually in today's society, is the sort of the fact that a lot of people get their news from social media, and you know that they're not being critical about, you know, the sources and the. We also live in echo chambers, so we tend to listen, you know, like I listen to Radio 4, and I tend to hear people talking that reinforces the way that I think, you know, rather than, you know, I should be looking also at, you know, at different things to challenge my, you know, conceptions of the world.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the challenges I invite myself, so I try to listen to different broadcasts.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So now I'm actually going to use one of your own sentences that
Oh my goodness.
you produced last week.
Did I?
Yes. I've only just managed to deal with my imposter syndrome.
Oh.
So my question, can you share the method you use to deal with the imposter syndrome? And then I'll lead from that.
Okay. Maybe I should explain where this imposter syndrome comes from. I think lots of people have an imposter syndrome. I mean, I grew up at a time when children took exams at 9 and 11 that determined the school that they went to, and I failed my 9+ exam and was borderline in my 11+ exam, and as a consequence I went to what was called a secondary modern school.
Okay.
Where, generally speaking, the young people were trained to go and work as secretaries or plumbers or whatever, and I think I was left with a feeling of inadequacy and being second rate, although my parents and teachers, I have to say, did everything they could to challenge that. So I think that's where it came from. And I remember being at Cambridge, where I went to do my teaching certificate, and the lecturer was sort of asking where everybody had been to school, and there were lots of people who'd been to public school and lots of people been to independents and comprehensives. And then he said to me, "My dear, you haven't put your hand up." And I said, "No, that's because I went to a secondary modern." And he said, "Oh, my dear, you have done well to get here." And I didn't know whether to punch him or to, you know, agree with him. But I don't know, I think maybe having an imposter syndrome is a good thing, because I think to be an arrogant leader or an arrogant teacher who thinks they know everything is probably worse than having a leader or a teacher who's got an imposter syndrome. I don't think it's stopped me doing anything. I think I've probably just challenged it. I've listened to what people say. I've been blessed with having good mentors and leaders, and especially women who are in positions of authority who have shared their own imposter syndrome, and have enabled me to overcome that. So I don't feel I've been held back from it. I think it's made me feel as if I need to fight harder sometimes to prove myself. And I hope I've done that in a sort of in a pleasant way, rather than trampling over everybody. But I wouldn't say I'm driven, but I like to prove to myself that I can do things. And
but that's a good thing, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, that is a good thing.
But it might be difficult with students if they have this syndrome and they're competing a lot. Sometimes it's because they might not be aware of that.
No.
So
I think actually, you know, teasing out of them how they're feeling and why they're feeling like they are, and getting them to see that there's perhaps another way of viewing life and competitive situations.
definitely.
Mm.
Okay. So following from the first question, really, being a guardian angel.
If you say so.
Yeah, if I
yeah.
say so, I know so.
Yeah.
It must be so difficult for you because you just take on so many emotions and become that sponge. So what's your method of offloading? So how do you offload those emotions?
Yeah, I mean, I think there have been times in my career where I found it overwhelming, really. And there's a sort of sense of feeling that you need to try and sort everyone's problems. And I am very much a sorter-outer. You know, if people bring me a problem, I like to have a solution or to work through a solution with them. I have, in the last few years, been having what's called supervision, which is where you share, particularly of a child protection nature, the issues that you've had to deal with, and have been able to sort of resolve some of the emotional baggage that goes with those, perhaps see through solutions, and also to know when to step aside or to back away. But inevitably, I think the work that I've done has changed me. It's shaped me, but it has changed me. And sometimes, you know, it is very sad work. Sometimes, I took up running actually as a way of trying to get into a more mindful state. I also do mindful knitting, where you count or you're concentrating on the stitches, and that is actually a very good way of just letting things flow out and not stay in your head. But yeah, and I don't worry about children. I only ever worry if there's something I should have done that I haven't.
Okay.
So I don't go home and worry about children.
Okay. It's something I struggle with a lot of times. So yeah. Okay. Final question. It's more of a standard question, I guess. What is your advice for newly qualified teachers?
Oh my goodness. I think it's important to keep up with your hobbies and your interests out of school. It's all too easy just to think, oh, I've got to mark the set of books, and to not go to the regular class or to meet up with friends. To do things that you enjoy doing and that make you feel good, and to take every opportunity to leave work behind, so that you have a really good work-life balance. I think if I had my time again, I wouldn't worry so much. I would have started supervision earlier. Okay. So if you get yourself into a role that's to do with child protection or welfare or working with children in that sort of capacity, to get some support, professional support, and to just take each day as it comes, really, to see the value and the joy in each day, and so that if you have a bad day, you put that day to one side and then focus on the next, and just to see children as amazing young people who have got such intelligence, such funny things they say and they do, and just really enjoy being with them and see it as a blessing rather than a job, just a job. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. No, it's been nice to talk. Yeah, definitely. Can I thank Hooman Valizadeh for making the video and helping me. Thanks, Hooman. To do this interview. Okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you.